Yes.
you asked me a question earlier and I didn't answer it about Metallica.
Yeah.
We were back then, back in the days, Sword. We just released Metalize,
Right.
and we had really really good critics on it. Everybody was saying this is a good album. This is something to, and we as a band were always together. We had a car. We called it the Sword Mobile.
Uh-huh.
It was a big Thunderbird 1977. Remember those car? How big they was?
Sure,
So we
yeah.
were in the car and we had David. I'm not licking your balls. We had
Thank you. I'm glad.
Megadeth. We had Megadeth's
He
album.
really appreciates that.
Yes, thank you.
That'll be for the video
Well, you
shoot.
listen to Megadeth, and we're on the Peace Cells tour, driving around listening to Stoned Again on Metal.
There you go.
Yeah.
We
That's
were
awesome.
listening to Megadeth and to Metallica's Master of Puppet,
Right.
and it was a tape player, and it was like this: flung, 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 flung. With
Yeah.
A side, B side, A
Side,
side,
yeah,
B side,
right.
all day, all day. So I'm home. The phone rings. It's my manager. And he goes, Rick, are you sitting down? I says, why? He says, because you need to sit down for this one. And that's when he announced that Metallica reached out to us. So we would do a leg of the tour of Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
So we
Great
so-
tour.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And it was postponed twice. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because
No COVID then.
No, it was postponed twice because Cliff.
Cliff. Yeah. Right.
Right. That's the first thing. And then it was postponed because James broke an arm while he was skateboarding. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we finally did it. And what I remember the most about that tour is the sadness in the eyes of those guys because they had just lost Cliff. They had just lost him. It was like 3-4 months after, and they were starting with Jason, and Jason was in the dressing room, he was there, but he was half there, And the rest of the guys, when I was talking one-on-one with James, he was always referring to that. I don't want to get too personal because it was a personal conversation, but it's worth hearing. He was telling, we were talking about music, and we go, so you guys be careful on the road. It's very dangerous. And I said, oh yeah, I'm sorry about your friend and your brother. And he go, yeah. And then we talk about music, and then we'll go, so be extra careful, if you go and there's an icy road. He would always come back to that,
Wow.
These guys.
It was the wound. It was still fresh, and that's what in life with anything. You even as something as minor as getting pulled over for a traffic infraction or something that you're doing, breaking the law in the car.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your senses are heightened again. Oh, I better not do that rolling stop. I better not go over the speed limit. And you do that for a while. That kind of stays with you. Something like that is so big, it stays with you for a long time. Probably still with them after all these years.
Yeah, it's a traumatizing event, right? So
one thing's for sure, I don't want to too much emphasize on this because there was some very, very cool part where they were having fun. We're having fun with them too. But that's what I remember the most, the sadness. Because the show had to go on, Yeah. You see, this is like the worst case scenario when they say the show must go on. I had to sing one night when the day my mother died. I had to sing that night. I had to. It was in my contract, and I could have been replaced, but my mom said, "Never get replaced. If you have to do a show, do it." So I stayed with her all day, and the night I went and sang. The show had to.
This happened, 3 years ago happened to me. The very first Sons of Apollo show ever. The very first show we were doing, my brother died that afternoon.
Whoa.
And we rehearsed, we're ready for it. We're on the cruise. We were on the cruise to the edge, which is, basically the rock people. Yeah. And the very first show that we were ever going to perform together, I had to go up there and kind of put it to the side. And of course, once I mentioned it or brought it up, even just a smidge, it brought me down. But that's where when you have a band like that, or when you have bands, brothers like you have in Sword, or like David has so many years with Mustaine, and when you have that unity, that's where you know you're not alone. That's where you know they're gonna keep you together, and you're gonna get through it together. And I'm sure Metallica, they relied on each other so much more then than any other time of their lives or their careers together. It was that moment that to kind of, move forward together.
Yeah, and let's not forget, as a highly trained professionals, my favorite place to be on planet Earth is on a stage.
On a stage, yeah.
With my musician friend and a live audience. That's my favorite place in life.
Yeah.
Right after it's the studio, but live with musicians and getting
energy, people.
On the stage is like this place you can't be touched, right? Yeah. It's like no one can get to you on that stage, just you and your bandmates. And you're right, it is this this very personal space that and you're right, no matter what you've been through, when the chips are down and when the chips are up, of course, but when there are those struggles, it is great to be with, you kind of look around and you go, I've been with these guys longer than I've been with anybody in my life. I've been with Dave longer than my own family at home, my family here in Arizona, anybody, you know what I mean? I mean, he and I we've been together before marriages and kids and, and everything else. And the ages that we met really young like that. I remember, my mom, we were playing Carolina Rebellion, excuse me, in North Carolina. I got the phone call to go home. It was on Mother's Day to fly home. They called me and they said, "Hey, we need to prepare end of life care for your mom." I'm like, "What? Like, where did this call come from?" Literally, my hand was on the door of a church. I was walking in to see some friends, and that call comes in. I'm like, "What the heck?" And so I flew home, and it was interesting because my mom's doctor was also a nun, and we grew up Lutheran kids, so I don't know why there was a
random
Catholic nun in the mix. Yeah, but anyway, but she said, she goes, "We need to let your mom go home and see the Lord. She suffered enough. Let's let her go." I'm like, wow, all right. Well, now you put it like that, you're right. Let's do it, and so I remember I sent Dave and everybody an email and I said, "Hey, listen, I got the word, we're going to Europe. It's the beginning of the Dystopia tour, big album, big run." I said, "Listen, I don't know if you want to have a backup bass player. I'd be prepared to cancel shows." And it's funny, in Dave's confidence, he just said, "God's got this one. It's going to be fine. It's going to be okay." You know what I mean? And just as the leader of the organization, as a friend to me, as a man of faith that he is, he just said, he goes, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine." And it's so weird. I broke my foot at backstage in Budapest at the last 3 shows. I broke my foot, and Dave's like, "That's it. We're going home. Like, you can't be on." I said, "I'll play." He goes, "You can't play, dude. It's like we're not taking the chance. Go home." So we went home, and it was interesting in that transition. Then my mom, I had flew up to Minnesota, and she passed, and I got to be there with her. And literally 10 days later, we're in South America on tour. And it is, I remember there were moments I'd be on stage and just, having thoughts of my mom, like almost tearful thoughts.
Yeah.
Memorable thoughts. And you're melting 10,000 faces with frickin' Holy Wars, and you're thinking about your mom, you know what I mean? And it's those moments, but it was weird. It's like, Dave, he knew me, he knew my mom, he knew the situation. And, again, as the leader, just said, "No, let's keep moving forward. We're not stopping for this. This will all fall into place, it's great when you've got that camaraderie. Like you said, some of these bands we've grown up with our bandmates, Rick, you and Sword. I mean, my gosh, you guys have been around.
My brother plays drum.
Like what, 80, 81? Yeah. So, I mean, you guys have been around a long time. Yep. So it's like we get to grow up in these settings that are bigger than the music,
Absolutely.
So it's very cool.
And that's honorable and admirable of, because you, of all of us sitting here, you have the longest history with one person, with one band. Mm-hmm. And that's always something I dreamed of. I actually used to get hit up a lot. People would criticize me because I was maybe jumping ship from one band and jumping sounds. And I was doing so much of that jumping around, trying to not necessarily find myself, I knew what I wanted to do. I just was never really surrounded by people who wanted to follow that vision of let's do everything. Let's do everything that's and the kitchen sink. I always wanted a queen. I always wanted the kitchen sink band and never had one. And that's what kept me floating around, bopping around and trying different things. But a lot of that course, a lot of that time, people were saying, you know what, you would have a much more structured career and name for yourself if you just stuck to one thing and you stayed the course. And I tried, man. Trust me, I tried. I was in bands where I was just going, okay, this will be the one. And then I'm like, hey guys, what do you think we do? That? Nah, that's not us. I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay, bouncing. See you later.
Yeah.
And now it's par for the course. Now it's so standardized that you see somebody like myself or David or Mike Portnoy, and we're just jumping around and bopping around to different things because now at this point of our lives, at this stage of our lives, we can actually start pursuing all those things that we were missing or the things that we wanted to do. And that's pretty much the essence of how to describe what I'm doing here with David. We're just doing something that clicks and sounds great for what we want to do together. And that's why we're doing it.